at 100.5 FM and also streaming at www.coopradio.org. And we are joined on the line with Omar Omar, who is a tech professional living here in Vancouver, but also is a representative of the group Gazan Families and the founder of the Gaza Canadian League. And we've asked him to come and join us on his advocacy and the efforts around his work, the successes and the challenges. Thank you so much, Omar, for taking this time out.
Thank you so much.
Omar, the last time we talked, it was about a report titled "Intended to Fail: Systemic Anti-Palestinian Racism and Canada's Gaza Temporary Resident Visa Program." I want to begin by asking you, what is the status of your own family in Palestine?
They're still there as refugees now, sitting on the ruins of my house in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. Thank God they're still all alive. I did not actually expect to see all of them alive after all what's been happening. But they are in still recovery, trying to just recover from what they have seen, what they have witnessed for over 15 months now.
And what is the state of communication between you and them?
I mean, we don't really have much of communication for many reasons. First, there's no hydro, there's no electricity in the Gaza Strip. All hydro stations have been bombed. Electricity lines, anything infrastructure you can think about is gone. So even if they get the chance to charge their phones by solar panels or whatever, there's no signal. They have to go to a specific area near the borders, which is like really dangerous, and get some signal and maybe send me a WhatsApp message, or they are there in a specific time on the day that they can get some signal, so I can give them like an international call. So, whenever I get lucky to, catch them, I just give them a call. Sometimes they send a text message on WhatsApp. It has been the situation since like forever now, since the start of the Israeli assault.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And like other Palestinians, yourself are caught in this nexus of the Canadian temporary visa program.
Yeah, we're talking about almost every Gazan Canadian who have relatives in the Gaza Strip is now in the same status quo.
Has that moved at all? I know that it's you have been working on it for many months. Has it moved? Can you let us know where we're at now with it in terms of any movement?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it didn't move anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. All the wins that we had I can call them little wins here and there, because that's what we are trying to do, and those little wins have been coming after a lot of lobbying, building partnerships with other lobbies, or even individuals or professionals who are just there to help. They're just like good humans who want to help. We were able to get like the financial support, a little bit like the $3,000, which is like the same thing that happened to the Ukrainians who came here to Canada on the Ukrainian program, and some healthcare, which is like 3 months healthcare for them, provincial one or federal one, and in total, people who arrived is about 800 people, and that's it. We are talking about another around 3,000 applicants who are stuck in the Gaza Strip, and roughly another 1,000 Palestinian residing in Egypt who managed to escape the Gaza Strip through Rafah crossing before the Israeli side took over the Rafah crossing on May 2024, when they took over Rafah. And at that time, in order for any Palestinian Gazan to leave and flee the Gaza Strip, they had to pay between $5,000 to $10,000 per person to leave and get smuggled to Egypt. So people who made it is a lot of people, but unfortunately I paid all the money from my family, and only 2 sisters or 1 sister was able to make it to Egypt with her family. And because my family was located in the north, so they had to go to the south, and there was like checkpoints between the north and the south, and they were taking people on the checkpoint, and it wasn't really safe. People were getting shot on the way while they were escaping. So I paid all the money, and then 2 days before the time comes for them to escape through Rafah crossing, the Israeli army, the Israeli occupation forces took off the Rafah crossing. And by then, all the bribe money I paid for those Egyptian individuals was gone.
And this, I'm sure, is replicated. You've heard this story from other Palestinians in Canada, similar stories.
This is the story of every Palestinian Gazan who made it to Canada. It's basically, you will hear stories from people who have given all their savings and beyond. Some people, they sold everything they had. Some people borrowed money. Like in my case, they borrowed a lot of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because, for example, I have 24 family members. This includes like nieces and nephews and brother-in-laws and my parents. And so imagine between $5,000 to $10,000 per person multiplied by 24. And that does not even include the amount of money you spend a month for them to survive in Egypt. So when you're talking about all those Gazans who have been waiting, when after doing the biometrics, they have been waiting for the security clearance. It took them, many people, it took them between minimum 5 months to a year. We have people who applied on January 2024 and are still, until now, in the security clearance processing. This just tells you one main thing is, it's just like unfair, and it's not true what's happening. It should not be this way. I'll give an example. I worked for many international organizations on the Gaza Strip, which means at that time, before you are even approved for a permit to work with this NGO, especially if it was UNRWA, Mercy Corps, Oxfam, you have to be vetted by the U.S. government, which means that if you belong to any Palestinian organization, you can get into this job, period, right? I had many friends who were like very senior, working for 10 years in UNRWA, Oxfam, Mercy Corps, and they have traveled the world. They had like 5 years U.S. visa on their passport, and they've been living in Europe, back and forth, going to Europe, even getting trained in Washington, D.C. in the U.S. And these people left the Gaza Strip on January 2024, and they applied for this program. They received the code, and they are still, until now, on security clearance. And I was like, and then you hear all these stories, like these are people that I know, but they have never been with any Palestinian organization, as the Canadian government claims, like, oh, the reason why the security clearance is taking this long is because maybe we are doing a second round of security clearance. Maybe we have joined the Palestinian organization. I mean, these whole unrealistic justifications, we don't find them coming from a goodwill. We believe that they are all false claims by this Canadian government to just slow this program and make Palestinians suffer. Until now, I have been meeting with many people and officials from the government, and I don't feel that this program was made by a goodwill. I think it was just a PR show to tell the world that we are nice, and after they got completely exposed of their hypocrisy, allowing almost 1 million Ukrainians fleeing the war to come to Canada, and then they did not want to allow any Gaza. And then when we lobbied since November 2023 and started exposing them, like, hey, our people are going through a genocide, and we are still a Canadian citizen. Maybe you can help us bring our family here. So they felt embarrassed, basically. We just caught their hypocrisy, and that's why they initiated this program that they don't want to commit to.
And even as we talked last time on the program that they initiated itself is extremely difficult for people to navigate, and the amounts of documents and so on that they are asking for seems really unreasonable for people that are in crisis and emergency situations.
It's not only unreasonable, it's completely dehumanizing and insulting. I'll give you an example. When you're asking in an application, so I had to submit 24 TRV application, but in the TRV application we had an extra application where we had to put way more detailed information about, for example, my brother-in-law family, his brothers and sisters and everyone in their family, and their ID numbers and their birthday, date of birth, and every single, and their social media. And I was like, You don't have to do this. I can't even get hold of any of my family members at that time when they were asking for this information. It's like an unrealistic ask that you can ask for someone. And it just doesn't make sense. But then one of the things that made me feel furious in this program is like they were asking about the scars of someone. You know what? I have 3 scars in my body. That doesn't make me a terrorist. it just, you're asking for somebody else's scars, and where did you get them from? And justify a scar that you had in your body, and you're asking a 13-year-old kid if they have a scar and where they got it from. And you know what? I don't even remember where I got all my scars. All of us have scars. I mean, at the same time, we're talking about a genocide where over 250,000 people are injured, between 150 to 250. And you're asking me if you have a scar or not. I mean, we lost people from our own community who were evacuating and who got killed. Simply as simple as that. And you're asking me to ask my brother who has been in a starvation mode for months if he has a scar or not. You know what? This poor guy, my brother, he was not eating. He was thinking of where to escape. He escaped 13 locations from the north to the other north, like to another area. And he escaped bombardment, carpet bombardment, where he got his cousins, my cousins, killed when he was fleeing with him. And then you want me to find this guy, to find my brother, who doesn't have a phone signal, and ask him this question, hey, can you please check if you have a scar? And it just doesn't make, and it just makes me feel furious, dehumanized, and it just makes me feel that, are you really asking me to ask a kid or someone who is 13, 16 years old, living in a war zone, if he has a scar and where he got it from? And you want me to put all his social media on this application. So if this guy who has been displaced, living under military occupation in the Gaza Strip, in an open-air prison, so you see, if he put in his social media that he hates Israel, then this makes this guy a terrorist, and like he wouldn't be eligible to apply for this program for security reasons. Guess what? I don't like the Israeli occupation. I don't want to see an Israeli occupation. I don't want to see violence. If he caused me violence, and if you've been treating me unjust my whole life, why should I like you? Why should I respect you? Why should I believe in your values, right? And if I am public about that, does this really make me a terrorist? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
It's really unimaginable for us at this end of it to hear like this kind of stuff, Omar. I mean, first of all, thank you for sharing, because I don't know if Canadians or whoever is listening understands the extent of this dehumanization that Palestinians are suffering at this time over there and then over here as well. So thank you so much for sharing this. Omar, can you also share with us more around how Gazan families came together and the Gaza Canadian League? What's happening around there?
Well, I have never been an activist. I don't want to be an activist. And I was just like anybody else in here. I was just working my 9-to-5 job, working in tech, really busy working, and then watching my own people dying on a 4K screen. And then there was days where I was depressed, crying in my own bed, unable to say a word, unable to walk to the kitchen, even do anything, even walk to my washroom. I was paralyzed, and I was having all these calls from all these friends. Is your family okay? And then I was like, I have to do something. Because, you have this survival guilt. It's like, okay, my family is dying. And your natural response as a human being who believes in your own humanity and the values of your family, you have to do something. That's your nature as a human being, as a good human. Mm-hmm. So my nature was like, okay, I need to do something. So I just started calling 1 or 2 friends of my friends in Toronto and Ontario on WhatsApp, and just like creating this group, and then just checking, hey, is your family still alive? For all my friends here who are Gazan Canadians. And I really did not know much. I knew like 4 Gazans in whole Canada, because I was living in Victoria and Victoria, BC, and then I moved to Vancouver. So Arabs in general are the minority of minorities in this country.
Sure.
And Palestinians in general were not many. And Gazans, we were living in siege. So God knows how we lived this open-air prison.
Yeah.
So you're not really talking about many Gazans in Canada. And then we just start finding each other. And then I created this WhatsApp group, and I called it Gaza Canadians. And then it starts spreading. And then I said, okay, well, let's bring everyone. I had a personal Zoom subscription. I was like, okay, we need to talk. Let's at least have a talk. We can grieve together. We can cry together. We needed some people to feel us. And the only one who can feel you is someone from your own culture who's under the same pain, who can relate to you, right? We started talking. I was like, okay, let's start doing something. And then we were, okay, who knows lobbying here? Who understands activism? You know, none of us actually in the Gaza Canadian League or Gaza Canadian Family Committee is actually an activist. We're all a bunch of engineers, tech people, civil engineers. Like, that's it. And then, okay, we need to do something. Let's do this and that. And we start stumbling around all these different people. And then we had people and allies, many allies joined us from many different communities. We have allies from really a lot of communities here in Canada. Many people who have been just wonderful humans who just want to see people living in peace. That it was as simple as that. Genuine humans from every color, ethnicity, religion you can imagine who lives in Canada, because that's what's special about being here in Canada. And here we are. We started lobbying with people, talking to all these politicians who I never actually wanted to be a friend or even talking to any of them. And getting all the trauma of talking to all these people who were not seeing you as an equal human. It was not only shocking, but it was traumatizing. You know, for someone who lived under apartheid, you know how you're being treated in a daily basis. Checkpoints, open-air prison. People are treating you as subhuman. You know, they even said it on TV as human animals. This is how they treated us. And then you are dreaming about this land of freedom and justice and equality and equity and all these concepts. And then you come here and it's like, oh, this stuff doesn't really exist. And then it just triggers into you this whole trauma where you thought by leaving everything back home and spending the best 10 years of your life in Canada, giving this country the best of your life since the age of 24, I've been here. 10 years where I studied, integrated, paid taxes, you know, worked with Canadians and acted as a Canadian and integrated as a Canadian, now a Canadian citizen, and then figure out that those politicians actually don't care about you. You're not a Canadian, really. You don't feel like one. You cannot relate. And I feel just betrayed.
Yeah, it is difficult when we recognize this. Yeah, I mean, as an immigrant here to this country, I went through a similar process where it did hit me at some point. I did recognize at some point that no matter what I do or how much I integrate, I'm still going to be asked where you're from, in this way of alienating you and treating you as somebody who is not worthy of the kinds of treatment. And as you said, in your own advocacy here, we had the scientific proof of variables. So we had Ukraine on one side and we had Gaza on the other side. And it's very easy to see where the Canadian government puts its values to play. It must be really difficult. Yes, please. Go
these
on.
concepts, they only apply for certain types of people. They don't apply for people like me. And this reality is now stamped at the subconscious at the back of my head. It will take me ages to really have this trust and rebuild this trust with this system, with those values that they've been teaching us and lecturing us for many years. And it's very saddened. It just really saddens me because I have never been thinking that this time will come. I came here and I was just a young man enjoying his life. You know, Vancouver is a beautiful space. I was just acting and enjoying and just living life to the max, working, living, and having friends from everywhere. mixing up with all these communities, acting normal, but then this reality is making me look into things in a complete different eye. It's a complete different angle, and I don't like it, and it's toxic when you feel that you are in a country where you're not the same. It just hurts you really hard, and deep in your heart, you are full of a big scar that has been caused by this kind of like a big lie or something. And you know what? You don't want to live like that. You don't want to live in this toxicity, believing that you are in a place that is you cannot belong to fully. They just eliminated you, and they made you an alien, right? And it should not be like that, because it's very simple. These people have been suffering a genocide. You know what? If we just agree on the word genocide, call it mass killing. You know what? Consider it as the same war scale of Ukraine, and just let it be. Bring the same equation here. You allowed. We're not asking the government to bring every Gazan from Gaza to Canada. I am against the transfer policy. I am against emptying the Gaza Strip. You know what? My family is even against coming to Canada. I have been begging them for years to come here for a visit here, and they don't want it to, although they are living in a miserable situation, right?
Yes.
Having no electricity, polluted water. Gaza has been unlivable according to the U.S., the UN report, since 15 years. It's not something new. But at these circumstances, the minimum I can give them is, hey, come and get some relief here for 3 years and then go back.
Yeah.
And the only ask we asked for is, we are very limited amount of families from the Gaza Strip, and we are asking you to bring the first-degree relative to Canada, period. It's that simple. But even that minimum was not cool with this government. Even that minimum was not fine. And then they were like, oh, we will allow 1,000 person. And then when you ask them, like, how did you come up with this number? They were like, we want to measure how many Gazan is in Gaza. Well, you have statistics, Canada. You are the government. You know where everyone is coming from. You have your data. You cannot convince me that you don't know how many Palestinians you have in Canada. You cannot convince me how many Gazan you have in Canada. It's in your own systems.
Interpol already knows. I would imagine.
It's a disaster if they don't know. And then when we exposed them on the media, they were like, okay, we will make it 5,000. And still, it should not even be capped, because this was not the case in a previous program.
Right.
But then when you look at the Sudanese program, it's capped. Okay, so in this case, basic understanding, 1 + 1 = 2. If you ask a child what this means, it means that if you are a person from a certain countries, it's capped, and if you are a person from any other countries, it's not capped. This is by default what they are telling everyone.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's absolutely that. It's very clear for anybody that wants to see it. It is exactly this.
Yeah, but it's a sad reality. Why should we live in 2025 in this kind of reality? Why should I live? I mean, you know what? It's fine if I came to Canada knowing that I will be treated as a second-class citizen. At least I knew in advance. But to sell all those ideas and all these values and to brag about them and then find out that they don't exist, that is the problem.
Yeah.
That is the problem.
Yeah, when you find out democracy, hypocrisy. This is
exactly. I mean, I am sorry to say, but it is.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. Omar, on the other hand, through your advocacy, through the work that you have been doing, you've also engaged with civil society organizations and other collectives, Canadians who are standing by you.
Well, the thing that keeps me survive every single day with a smile and hope and great pride, and to me really proud of being a part of this community, is the support that I have seen from many Canadians, from many organizations, many community members, from different, as I mentioned, from different religions, cultures, and backgrounds. And it was really, really nice, because we have been talking to these people, everything, settlement organizations, organizations in general, different movements, just people who went and organized themselves by themselves because they wanted to stand up for humanity. And for example, Nurses for Palestine and Ontario or Ottawa Health Worker for Palestine. These people are just regular people. They don't even have relatives in Palestine, and many of them have never knew maybe where Palestine is on the map. But they have started seeing what is happening, and they don't have any connection to the Middle East. But they are good humans. They are actual humans who felt bad for what's happening to humanity and just wanted to act on it as a responsible human being who have values. And I can have nothing towards these people but respect and actual respect and love. And many of those people have been helping us into talking to politicians, lobbying with us. And you know what? They went all the way, and they did their whole work by themselves. And we were just the point of coordination who did the minimum, because we were exhausted, tired, burned out. You name it. If you're watching your family dying on TV and you can't sleep for almost a year, how would you feel, right? And you're still working, and you are being oppressed, and you are going through all this PTSD and trauma, and you're tired, you're exhausted, you're drained, and then you're talking to this government that is sucking every single energy from you. So these people have been doing an amazing work. I am personally grateful for every single community member and all these communities who stood up with us. I would never forget those moments where we shared good laughs, cries, tears together, some little victories that made us laugh and feel good on adrenaline. And it gave me hope. It gave me hope about staying in Canada, being a proud Canadian if I want to, and if I can, continue living, because you need this gentle touch from those humans to survive.
Yes, absolutely. And we all know that governments don't represent people. So there is this side of it. There are, as you said, Canadians who are stepping up and working for the betterment. And Omar, if we can take a bit of a break for just a couple of minutes, I want to call Dr. Angela Caron and have her come and join us in this conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Dr. Angela Caron is also working with Collaboration for Change, supporting newcomers from Gaza. We're going to take a really quick musical break while we get them on the phone to join us, and we'll be right back with Omar. I'm just going to merge these calls. Stay tuned. Dr. Angela Caron is a clinical psychologist with competencies in clinical work with adults, individuals and couples. Her clinical practice is primarily dedicated to the service of those struggling with impacts of psychological trauma. And we've asked Dr. Caron to come on and join us in this conversation because you are involved with something called Collaboration for Change, supporting newcomers from Gaza. And this is dovetailing with the Canadian Gaza League and the work that Omar has been doing. So welcome to the program, Dr. Caron. Can you start by telling us how you got involved with Collaboration for Change?
Hi, yes, good evening. Thank you so much for having me with you both. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be with you both tonight and to be with your listeners as well. Going back several months, out of a sheer coincidence, I met a young man from Gaza who had recently arrived to the city in which I live, which is Ottawa. And through meeting him through a chance encounter, really shifted the course of my focus over the past several months. When I met him and heard his story of what he had endured and what his family were actively enduring. He had arrived to Ottawa, and his entire family remained trapped in the north of Gaza. I knew right away that he wouldn't be the only person arriving to Ottawa as an evacuee from Gaza, and I knew that myself, along with dedicated healthcare colleagues, needed to mobilize quickly to ensure that we could work in service of Gazan evacuees. So it was really through a chance encounter. But long before that, I've dedicated my life professionally and I hope personally too to being in service of upholding the dignity and human rights of all people, particularly those who face immense structural violence.
Omar, can you connect the dots with us in terms of the collaboration between the Gaza Canadian League and supporting newcomers from Gaza in this particular project with Dr. Angela Caron?
Yeah, we got contacted by a female from one of the, I think, nurses, one of the health workers in Ottawa, and just like on our Instagram page, and started saying we would like to offer help in a way, and I was like, yeah, that would be amazing. We didn't really do much with this whole work. It was mainly made from A to Z by the group, and we were just like trying to arrange and just engage them more and sharing information. We just shared with them what we have as information, because we have full access to the whole community here, and we are tracking all these stories of all these difficulties, and we know them because we had those bi-weekly meetings with IRCC, Immigration Canada staff. We were discussing all these difficulties and collecting all these different cases, and to try to change, not to fix them case by case, but to make the change as a policy overall. But we're not experts in the healthcare system. We don't know how things work. We're not doctors. I don't even have a family doctor since 10 years until now. So this help from health workers just came to us as a wonderful, it was really needed. It was extremely needed, and we just did not know what to do. So them reaching out to us, all we did is just really sharing the information that we know, and then they took it and did the whole work, and boom, there was like little success here and there, and it was really good success, because now we know. I am learning from this whole movement. I'm learning a while ago now. I'm learning about all these immigration policies and all these needed documents in the system for the healthcare, like everybody else. So, yeah.
It's really awesome. So it sounds like, Dr. Caron, that Collaboration for Change supporting newcomers from Gaza started as a collective and then reached out to the Gaza Canadian League. Is that sort of connecting the dots there?
Yes, that's exactly connecting the dots.
And then,
chiefly,
yeah, okay,
my apologies.
No, it's okay. But I just wanted to then ask, can we talk then about the support for newcomers from Gaza is trying to get together what? How are we supporting them, or what is the plan?
So there's essentially two components, two chief components involved in our work of supporting Gazan newcomers on the healthcare side of things anyway. Okay. Mm-hmm. There is healthcare navigation support services, which myself and a colleague built a program for Gazan newcomers, primarily those to Ottawa and surrounding regions. Mm-hmm. Before we got connected with Omar and his colleagues, we built up a program whereby we provide navigation support services and do what we can to help newcomers get connected to culturally competent, safe and accessible healthcare services, running from optometric services right to surgical appointments. So sort of the all spanning and all-encompassing healthcare services. And then we realized that ourselves as humble healthcare workers who know how to do our jobs, that just knowing how to do our jobs was not sufficient, that there needs to be a second component, which is an advocacy component, because the structural barriers that are in place and that Gaza newcomers are up against hold our hands tied behind our backs, if you will, insofar as being able to properly help newcomers access care. So while we're good at doing our jobs and helping people find the right, safe, competent healthcare provider, we needed to open up advocacy efforts to try to remove or dismantle some systemic barriers that were in place. And that's right around the time that we were so blessed to be welcomed in by Omar and his colleagues with the Gaza Canadian.
Omar or Dr. Caron, talk to us about what kinds of barriers we're talking about here when it comes to this. I mean, do you feel that still is the case? A population like the Gazans would be coming and then trying to access healthcare and still face barriers?
There are the successes that we've had in overcoming some barriers for which we are very grateful. And then there remain tremendous structural barriers for Gazan newcomers to Canada.
Can you give us some examples of what those are?
Yes, absolutely. So up until late December, within the province of Ontario, Gazan newcomers arriving to Canada were eligible for only 3 months of access to healthcare services, after which the expectation was that they would, their provincial healthcare coverage, something that the visa program provides, so 3 months of time-limited federal healthcare coverage would expire, and the expectation would be that the person would then bridge over to provincial healthcare. So in Ontario, we have something called OHIP, the Ontario Health Insurance Plan. Mm-hmm. Now, the threshold to access OHIP for all Gaza newcomers was placed at a near impossible threshold. At the time, we conducted a survey of all families in Ottawa. At the time, there were about 30 families, and 99% of the families were entirely ineligible to access OHIP. So what we would see is families arrive from Gaza having their lives turned upside down would be the most, to put things in the most humble of terms, right? Mm-hmm. And then while they're trying to access things like housing, food, shelter, trying to seek employment, if at all possible, the time was ticking on their health insurance. Now, once the 3 months would pass, they were then rendered ineligible, essentially, for healthcare services. So that is a massive structural barrier, first and foremost. We've had success with overcoming this barrier. As of late December, all Gazan newcomer families in Ontario are eligible for provincial healthcare insurance. And colleagues of ours have just recently, as of last week, had success in removing barriers to accessing provincial healthcare out in Newfoundland and Labrador, which leaves now Quebec as the only province standing in Canada to have exclusionary criteria for newcomers to Gaza to accessing their provincial healthcare insurance coverage. So there remains the province of Quebec as one glaring example of immense structural barriers to accessing healthcare. However, we continue to see barriers to accessing healthcare within here in Ontario and across Canada. There is absolutely a dearth, like a terrible shortage of healthcare providers who are competent to be able to provide safe treatment to Palestinians. Many healthcare providers have received absolutely zero training on the systemic racism and structural violence that Palestinian people endure, and are entirely inequipped to be able to provide safe and competent healthcare services, from medical services as well as to psychological and psychiatric care as well to Palestinians.
Wow, it's really complicated, isn't it? And how all of these pieces need to come together for particularly to be able to be effective. And So if I understood it correctly, this is a program that is rolled out from the communities, from the healthcare communities, and then it's rolled out province by province, with Quebec being the exception.
Yes, in terms of provincial healthcare coverage, yes, exactly, and Quebec stands as the exception.
Okay. Omar, would you like to share your thoughts and comments around how Collaboration for Change supporting newcomers from Gaza came together from your perspective? What more needs to happen around this? What are some of the challenges that you're still facing when you are doing this?
I mean, the only thing I can do is actually ask more and more people to reach out to help us and just take this example as a really leading example to do something about what's happening in the Gaza Strip. I mean, we have been seeing Canadians marching, asking for a ceasefire, but also we want to see more of Canadians professionals stepping up and actually teaming up with us to try to find solutions. For example, we're trying now to get Gazans who are arriving on this program. I hope they arrive. I mean, the Canadian government still did not evacuate a single person, but we are trying to get more initiatives like letting those newcomers get education in universities, in Canadian universities, and being treated as Canadian students, not have to pay 5 times as a Canadian, how much a Canadian would pay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these kind of initiatives, and to really push to get more healthcare in the future. Like they can get, instead of like 3 months or 6 months, maybe they can get something for a year. I mean, we do understand that our healthcare system is exhausted and it's lacking a lot of resources, but we're not talking about 200,000 immigrants a month, which is the number of how many people were used to come to Canada every year. Even more than that, we're not talking about 250. We're talking about 5,000 to maximum of a Gazan who needs all kind of help. They need therapy. Like I am thinking about my parents. My parents have been seeing things that I don't think any other human being would imagine seeing. These people will need therapy. They would need they will need medications. They will get a lot of medical treatments now and for the next few months. They are literally surviving a genocide, and they need a lot of care. I am personally. And, you know, if you don't have health insurance and you don't have a lot of money, you won't be able to actually support those people who are coming here. And I don't think even Canadians themselves in general can afford their own health bill if they don't have a third-party insurance or if they don't have a health insurance. So we need more of these initiatives. We're asking everyone to step in and just save who left surviving this mass killing in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, an argument can also be made that Canada is responsible for what is happening due to its ongoing support of the conditions that are there. And so the least it can do is offer some respite, which we find really difficult in this situation. Dr. Caron, along with this program, it seems like there are a lot of bases covered, and notwithstanding Quebec's not coming into it, what else are you hoping for in terms of this program? Can it be enriched? Are there other components to it, or can you talk to us a little bit more about stuff like that?
Yes, absolutely. I'd be pleased to. Firstly, there is one component that comes to mind, which is access to mental health care services. We are hoping and we are appealing to mental health care providers who are licensed across Canada, who may speak Arabic and who may have competency to be able to work with Arab and Muslim populations, who may be interested in volunteering their time to provide some no-cost services, or organizations who may have funds available to please reach out to us if there are any organizations or initiatives that have funding to be able to fund some therapy. Because we know that for the Gazan families, they have just survived the unsurvivable. But the genocide follows them here too. Not in terms of physical threat, but the haunting of what they have endured and what they will continue to endure internally follows them here, right? The struggle is not over. The struggle continues. It just changes shape. And in order for us to fulfill our calling as human beings, we need to seek out an open opportunity for these people to be able to rebuild their lives. And a key component of that is mental health services. So we continue to put calls out to organizations who may have funds that they can allocate to help fund some therapies, or to mental health care providers who may be open to volunteering their time. That's number one. That is a massive and glaring component of huge need that we continue to hope to have filled, at least in some capacity. Second to that, people ask me all the time, well, how do you treat trauma? How do you treat someone who has survived the unsurvivable? And I like to think about things in this way, is that the best way to treat trauma is to prevent trauma. And preventing further trauma right now means that all people, all Canadians, must do what they can. It's incumbent upon all people of conscience to do whatever they can, big or really, really small, whatever is in someone's means to do to stop the death, right? So people taking on advocacy roles in whichever way that means to them, to advocate for an end to these atrocities. That's secondly, right? Mm-hmm. And then a third component, and a major initiative that we're hoping to undertake, is to appeal to the province of Ontario to accept pediatric medical evacuees from Gaza. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of children whose lives hang in the fold, and we have the capacity to be able to save lives here on Canadian soil. We just need the political will. So we have opened a fledgling initiative here in Ontario whereby we hope to receive the Premier's support in opening up a pathway for a small cohort of pediatric medical evacuees to be able to come here and receive life-saving treatment.
How would listeners be able to connect with Collaboration for Change supporting newcomers from Gaza?
I always have my email open, and I always have my phone next to me, much to my husband's chagrin. Anyone who would like to reach out to me, I am happy to share my personal email address if that's something that you may be open to sharing. They can also connect with us online through Ottawa Healthcare Professional for Palestine's Instagram page. I'm sure I can't speak for Omar, but I'm sure that you would be open to receiving any messages coming through on your Instagram channels, on the Gaza Canadian League channels, anyone who may want to be involved in supporting such an initiative.
And from our part, anyone can access our Instagram page. It's called Gaza Canadians. They can just send us a text there. We have our emails, or WhatsApp number, everything else to receive any inquiries, and we answer people all the time.
I want to commend and congratulate the two of you for doing the kinds of work that you do, also for taking this time out and sharing it with us. And Omar, please, any last words before we conclude this discussion?
I'm just grateful and thankful for all these wonderful humans who stepped in, and thankful for Dr. Angela and her team. And you know, this is something that is teaching me a lot about standing up with people and for communities as well. This is what communities should be doing in any disaster, whether it's in Canada, it's in the U.S., in Gaza, in Sudan, in Ukraine. It doesn't matter. This is Canada. This is the Canada that came and I was dreaming of coming and staying at. This is exactly the dream of seeing people and communities coming together to save lives and do better. We can do better, and that's what we're trying to do.
And we are, I think, politicians aside, but at least I see huge, diverse communities coming together on this particular issue. And I think it will only get stronger. Thank you once again for the work that you do and your time. We've been speaking with Omar Omar and Dr. Angela Caron on the Canadian Gaza League and Collaboration for Change supporting newcomers from Gaza. We hope to catch up with you as we go down the road. You guys, best luck, and thank you for this work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been
Our
a pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, folks, and that's going to be winding the program down for us today. Stay tuned for more programming that is coming right up here on CFRO 100.5 FM. And we'll just go out with Kishoria Monkar, Rag Jinjoiti.